It is 1:02. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Jackson Williams. In NFL news, the San Francisco 49ers and tight end George Kittle have agreed to a new 4-year, $76 million deal with $40 million of that guaranteed. This new deal makes Kittle the highest paid tight end in the NFL with an AAV of $19 million per year. In other NFL news, the Washington Commanders have released kicker Zane Gonzalez and signed former Colts kicker Matt Gay to a 1-year contract. Tennessee baseball looking to get back in the win column after a tough weekend series against LSU and Baton Rouge as they take on Northern Kentucky tonight to begin a 9-game homestand at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. First pitch for that one set for 5 p.m. For your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Store. 615-737-1045 is the number. We got a lot to cover today. We're going to be talking about Femi Oladejo and Kevin Winston. We'll also have Coach Mack on to kind of review the draft class, the philosophies, the players, and all that on at 2:20 p.m. as well. Of course, you guys can interact with us on the F&M Bank Chat on Zone TV, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live. And Blaine, something that we didn't hit on, I took a note on it from yesterday's press conference, and we didn't even really talk about the first of a few scouting changes that happened yesterday. So in the scouting department yesterday, the Tennessee Titans had let go, had parted ways, I think is the best word, because some of these guys have expiring contracts. Some of they just decide to go their separate ways. But the first one yesterday was A.J. Highsmith, who's been part of 3 organizations in his 11 years in the NFL player evaluation, will not return as director of scouting with the Titans as new GM Mike Bergonzi reshapes his staff. This comes from Neil Stratton yesterday.
Yeah, he was more of a Rand guy,
right? Right. And then, of course, Brian Gardner, who has been has parted ways with the Titans as director of pro scouting today. He came from the Bucks, 49ers, and Texans, so that's his history there. And then they've also let go scouting assistant and former Shaw University and Syracuse Football University wide receiver Corey Cooper, who spent the last 3 years as a Titan scouting assistant. Cooper previously spent time with the Shrine Bowl and at North Carolina Football and Personnel, and they've hired director of player personnel Dan Sagany, also known as Sags, according to the Cleveland Browns podcast he's been on that I've listened to. And they don't know what the title is for him yet. But apparently for the last couple of weeks, the chatter has been that this has already been a move that they were looking to make, according to Neil Stratton. Of course, PK had that first, but Neil Stratton follows it up with chatter was constant that Sagany was head to the Titans for the last couple of weeks. All this to say, this was one of the big mistakes that Rand Carthon committed when he was a general manager, was not clearing house on the scouting staff. And then you don't have to necessarily clean house, because you can work with people who are able to work with you under your system. But one of the many things that we've talked about when Carthon was let go was that, man, he didn't really surround himself with his guys in these lower levels, and Mike Bergonzi's wasting no time in either letting scouts. Ooh, good call. You were on it today. Whoa. I was not.
Whoa.
You nailed it.
Well, good. Doing your job.
Yeah. So looking at it, and I look at it and I go, all this is starting to make sense. They're starting to build out the way with people that are already here, with people that they want to bring in. But it was real interesting in the press conference, flown under the radar, is that they said yesterday that it's been a long, this is Brinker, it's been a long 3 months, and we call the cave, and we spend a lot of time in what we call the cave, together watching a lot of tape. This was a new process for a lot of people weren't familiar with. that really kind of gets overshadowed because that was in the first minute and 17 seconds of this press conference.
Yeah,
And that is kind of telling because a lot of these people are also holdovers from John Robinson's era. So this is a lot of guys that were here from John Robinson, a few new hires, but mainly John Robinson. I'm very surprised that neither Rand Carthon or John Robinson had a big-time film session or room because that seems very commonplace among some of these other franchises.
Yeah, you just never know. Different leaderships have different leadership styles. Maybe it was just the head honchos who were just the ones having the cave work, and not the scouts who were out there on the road and come back. They get all the data, then they sit down and have conversations. So there's different ways you can go about accomplishing what you want to, or whether it's my decision. Ultimately, I just don't want the people in here who's going to influence my decision, and then we'll move forward. In Rand's case, I say that was more about JR.
Yeah, because he seemed very insulated.
Right. And with Rand, I think he was, you never know if he was able to have a budget of hiring and firing because he didn't do anything.
True.
I don't know. Maybe he was able to do that. He just didn't make any changes. So every situation's own situation. And then naturally, Berganzi and crew is kind of doing it the way that they were brought up in. And this is really the appropriate way to do things in the scouting department, having the cave mentality. You hear all these stories about guys who, having all these late nights and really just sleeping at the facility,
right,
not leaving. So to your point, yeah, it was a little surprising, but at the same time, it's just like leadership. There's, more ways to skin a cat, and some people have different ways of doing things. So, a surprise, but, hey, to each his own for every GM who's in place.
Yeah, I mean, because I remember reading about Ed Dodds, who, guess what, also comes from the Kansas City Chiefs tree, which is influenced by the Ron Wolf, which is pretty much almost everybody's kind of influenced by Ron Wolf, really.
He was really good.
And so Chris Ballard also came from the Chiefs and brought Ed Dodds. All that to say, I know that when I was doing my research on all these GM candidates before Mike Berganzi got hired, I specifically remember, all right, you're on it today. Ed Dodds saying that they do this stuff. They they go in for 10 hours a day and work I guess that would be 50 hours a week. Well, no, because they work almost every day. I think they only have 2 days off. And I don't know if that was the extent that this went through, but they said it was very rigorous, very tiring, very new for a lot of these people. So with that, and this is what Neil Stratton says is kind of what I'm trying to echo, a new GM means new philosophies, and often room must be made for new faces. Mike Berganzi taking over the Titans front office. The winds of change continue to blow with new turnover today. So we'll see if these are the last of the changes and who they bring in to replace them, because I'm very interested to see who took to this new philosophy that they're going to keep around, because I think that's very telling, because Ron Wolf has always been a big proponent of you don't just fire people or let people go just to let them go. It says a lot about you if you can get them trained up in the way that you want things to be done. So I just always find this stuff kind of fascinating and looking forward to see what the new scouting staff or scouting department and personnel department looks like.
Well, I would take a different approach to that. I would say that just because someone was let go didn't mean that they didn't embrace the new model. Sometimes it's about getting your guys in there. As we know, just like coaches, there's good coaches get fired and hired assistant coaches all the time, but it's because they want to bring in their guys. So I would say I would lean into that probably a little bit more. If he was talking about a 50-50, I would say 60-70, because you want to make sure you have guys around you that you can trust. Right. So, and has experience. So, of working with them, because you have to evaluate them. And if you don't want to let a good talent get away, and you, after evaluation, he did it the right way. He evaluated the guys, saw who was, all in, or maybe someone who had great opinions, or maybe who you didn't like based off of what you knew as a GM. So I think it's always going to be a combination of all those things. So it's never one thing why somebody was like, oh, and maybe one was contract was up and said, hey, I like to go somewhere else. You just never know. But at the end of the day, he's going to have his guys in there, and that's the ultimate goal.
Dan Saganey's an interesting hire because he's spent his entire career with the Browns, but he got promoted at the same time that Glenn Cook got hired, and then he got promoted again the same time that Glenn Cook got promoted. And Glenn Cook comes from Green Bay, and Glenn Cook worked with Chad Brinker. So I do wonder if this is maybe, again, connections. And a guy that maybe they've never worked with. None of these guys have worked with, but they've worked with Glenn Cook, who has worked with this guy, and he speaks very highly of
these
him.
guys on the road when you're traveling, doing this
that's true.
and having conversation, dialogue, and you develop a relationship with certain guys when they're doing this in the scouting department. You see them, you see them at all the universities when you go there. So they come across each other. Sometimes you see them at the airport having conversations.
Yeah, that's true.
So
you see them everywhere.
You really do. So but a lot of people don't know who's a scout and who's not.
Yeah.
So I think, it's personal preference, who you feel comfortable with and think you have value with what they could bring to you and maybe make you look at things a little bit differently on certain things.
Yeah. Just so everybody knows, Dan Saganey got to start as a scout. Then he moved up to where he kind of scouts the opponents and puts the film together for that. Then he was just a manager of player personnel. Then he became the director of player personnel and the director of scouting in between that as well. So, he's held a few titles. And I will say this, he's one of those guys, kind of like John Spytek when I was talking about him, where he was the guy they put out there on like day 2, day 3 of the draft to talk about the players that they had drafted. So he is for the Browns, he's for better or for worse, because it is the Browns. I know that has a certain stigma to itself, the franchise does. But for better or for worse, that was the guy they put out there to kind of like, I don't know, probably get his name out there, I would say. You kind of put, I know that the Tennessee Titans, I think on day 3 or round 3, put the scouts out there, area scouts, to kind of talk to people. Sometimes use those time to get people that maybe your fan base doesn't really know, to get their insight, input on these prospects that you've drafted in these later rounds. So it's just, there's a lot of things that fans, in other words, in short, if you want to know more about your new hire, Dan Saganey, there's plenty of videos out there to hear him talk, hear his philosophies, and all that kind of stuff out there on the Cleveland Browns YouTube page. So there you go.
Yeah.
When we come back, we'll talk about Albert Breer's latest article about how Cam Ward erased any doubts Titans would draft him number 1. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to get in on the conversation. We were just going over this whole Bill Belichick, Jordan Hudson stuff off air. I mean, this is the wildest thing.
Yeah, Big Bill is acting like Jackson, man, right here.
Well, now,
Come on.
now, are you being held hostage by someone, Jackson?
No.
But he wants to.
Yeah.
I'm good on all this.
I don't even understand this whole deal.
So, like,
What's going
okay,
on
so
here, man?
Jordan Hudson, Instagram influencer, I guess. Is that her background? I guess.
I have no idea.
She was an influencer beforehand?
Maybe.
I don't really know where she came from, but, 24-year-old hooking up with a 72-year-old, hey, more power to him. But I don't know if this is the 24 do you really want to fool around with, because she's now leaking his emails. It's not, I mean, it's kind of crazy, right? So the whole CBS Sports thing in and of itself reads like a hostage negotiation, because she's in the background. They have pictures of her, and apparently TMZ then puts out that she has interrupted numerous times throughout that thing. Yep. They have questions they couldn't even show, answers they couldn't show, because she was so heavily involved. We already know, even before this, that she was being copied on every email, and he's asked everybody to even copy her on every email in the UNC football department, which is freaking weird. Now she's social media guru for the team. Is that correct, Jackson? Why you looked that up? But now
that's her title. That's why she wants to be copied on everything.
Yeah, and now she has leaked an email from April 10th in response to all of this, and it's a lengthy thing. And I'm going, it's a lengthy email, too lengthy for me to read on the air. But, like, he's talking to everybody, telling them about, hey, we're going to be promoting the book. It's about my professional life, but we're probably going to have a lot of stuff where it talks about, in the book, he says, I effed up a lot. And he's just kind of warning everybody there's going to be a media storm and all this kind of stuff. Just ignore the noise kind of deal. But now she's leaked it. And then she's putting out a statement apparently later today regarding the CBS thing. Like, this is a big old headache for me. And if I'm 72 and I'm running a college program, I'm not fooling around with a headache like this. I don't know why he's still with her.
Oh, no.
Well, I think I know why, but I don't know why.
Well, one of the questions was, how did they meet? And she botched that immediately.
Yeah.
Hey, we're not going to be talking about this.
Yeah.
We'll move on. She got loud like that. It was like, yelling.
She wasn't even mic'd up.
Yes. And then you could see it. So maybe there's something to that maybe we should dig up into, Jackson. Jackson said, I'm reading up now.
Yeah.
I'm doing some research.
Yes. Oh, man. It's hilarious just to see Bill like this. It seems like he's kind of letting her, take control of
we know why he's with her, but we don't know why. I mean, like, at some point, it's not worth it, is where I'm trying to get at.
I have no idea what is going on here, man.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, at some point, it's just not worth it. That's where I'm at. But it just seems like a headache, because it seems like you're raising a child and you're already going to be in charge of raising young men. And now you got this thing floating around over you, and it's just causing you more trouble. This is stuff that Bill Belichick doesn't like, and she's constantly doing it.
That's why I said something is weird about this whole. I mean, does she have something on Bill?
I don't know.
I don't know. Oh, man, it just seems like this is not something he signed up for, that he would sign up for. So maybe we don't know Bill as well we think.
I guess not. I don't know. Man, this just seems like something that you would not.
Trouble.
Someone needs to be stepping in on his behalf, and saying, Bill, dude, this isn't good for you. You need to get away from her. We'll find you another young thing if you want one. I mean, that's what you need. We'll find you another one. You don't need this one.
Is there a website for new young things or something?
I'm sure it is. I'm sure there's some dating site,
Oh, man. Oh, Bill. Yeah, man. Let's get a handle here, man.
Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at. Okay. So speaking of articles and interviews, Albert Breer has posted this really fantastic article. Jackson, you got something?
I think we need the Snyder cut of this interview.
Yes, yes, we do. We definitely need the Snyder cut. Okay, so this interview, this article, how Cam Ward erased any doubts Titans would draft him number 1 while recruiting its franchise quarterback. Tennessee discovered that the former University of Miami star stands behind what he says. It's a great article that I encourage everyone to try to go read and everything. I put it out on my timeline, so go follow or go look for me on Twitter, and you can find it, or go to Albert Breer.
Well, time out. It just hit me. Didn't he do an article just like this with Will Levis? Albert Breer.
Was that Pete Prisco or Albert Breer?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking. I don't know. I feel like it was
I know
the same
Pete Prisco
person.
had a really long one. Oh, you know what? It was.
From training camp, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that was Pete Prisco.
No, I know which one you're talking about. This is the one where after Brian Callahan got hired,
right.
He's the one that wrote the article about him and Will Levis watching the Atlanta Falcons game and all that stuff. That's the one you're talking about, and you are correct. That was Albert Breer.
Another, nice piece.
Another nice piece.
On the quarterback.
This one was interesting just because it takes you through the combine process and all that kind of stuff, all the touch points. It kind of tells you everything. And it really does show that they had, at some point, which we hope that they would if you're going to draft quarterback number 1, conviction. I did think that this was very interesting. Ward came in. I just love this interaction. Ward came in, and he into the room at the combine and says, "You don't draft me, you're going to pay for it." Callahan responded, "Hey, man, everybody says that. That's the dumbest crap." He, of course, uses the other word for crap I've ever heard. Every quarterback in the world says that now because Tom Brady said it way back in the day. The coach paused, and he says, Callahan says, "Do you mean that? Is that really you?" Ward says, "I mean it, and I stand on it." "Okay," Callahan said. "Good. At least you're not full of crap." And, of course, he uses the other word. But, I mean, I just love the insight it gives you into their process. Again, it means very little other than the fact that they had conviction. Like, that does mean a lot that they had this kind of conviction. But also, we kind of knew at some point they picked up and were going to, you were 80, you were 90, you ended up 95%. I was at 99%. But so we knew they had conviction. But it is just interesting if people want to go see more insight into the process, what they thought about. Mike Bergonzi's talked about in here as well, and his thoughts and their process and due diligence and all that kind of stuff. It's more of just, it means something, but it doesn't mean anything, if that makes sense. Because it's all about what happens on the field.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, the conviction is, this is what I hate about media right here. Those statements that he said, if you don't draft me, you're going to pay. Okay, yeah. So here's how.
Will Johnson said the same thing, by the way.
Right.
Will Howard, sorry. Will Howard,
the quarterback from Ohio State. Right, so depending on who you are, and if you like somebody or not, that can be portrayed as cocky like Jackson, arrogant like... you
can say me.
Yeah, you. or confident like me. Right? See how that can be spun?
Yeah.
And that's the part that how do you determine which one are they speaking on? See?
Yeah.
About a player. All three the same. You can take them any way you want to, but the ultimate goal is based off your film study, not about what somebody said.
Right.
At the end of the day, the NFL is about talent.
Yeah.
And hey, maybe he's watch this. Maybe he's a little quirky. Jay Cutler, right?
Right.
But he's a heck of a player.
Smoking Jay Cuddy.
Mm-hmm. Right. See, so that's the part that I think, a lot of people don't understand, at least from my perspective, of why they take these different stances when it's all really the same. At the same time, you could say that was cocky.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Or was he's confident in who he is, and he knows what's coming out, and hey, you going to pay if you don't take. I think there's a lot of players like that in every position.
They did go through in this article, and I want to get into this a little bit further, but I do want to say that just for those that want to seek this out, they do go through like what tape they showed them and all that kind of stuff. But I do think this is an interesting conversation in the sense of the way that Cam Ward carries himself versus Will Howard versus Shadur Sanders. But all these quarterbacks all have the same thing in common. Mm-hmm. They all believe in themselves.
Yeah.
And there is a difference between how you carry that across throughout the media or carry that across through your interviews in private, which, again, is something that we're not really that privy to. We can have all the anonymous scouts come out and say all these things that may have happened, but we're still not in the room. Well, some of those could be motivated by other things.
Well, let's first start with they need to now, from here on out, put their names on it.
I think they should.
You can't be anonymously speaking on somebody because I don't know if you're trying to get them to drop for you to pick.
Yeah.
Or are you just trying to, blackball the kid? Or you just don't like them. Watch this. There's a lot of kids that's going to be coming out. You just do not like their style. I'm going to say that about Shadur. Maybe some people just don't like flash. Right?
Right.
So they're going to tend to lean towards the other guy or other guys. So, but is he confident? Well, no, that's cocky. See?
Yeah.
So to me, it's a fine line. And it's about your perception and what you want him to be. And if he's not that, then he's on the other side of that. So being an athlete, you have to be confident and somewhat cocky at what you do and and arrogant because you wouldn't have made it this far.
Right.
I'm sorry.
I mean, do we not think J.J. Watt? I mean, that's the golden boy for a lot of people,
right.
Out there. He's cocky,
Absolutely.
arrogant, confident, whatever word you want to use, he's it.
So I don't know what they expect out of you. May not like their style.
Yeah.
Everybody's style is different. It's no different if you have two kids and it's not the same parents. They're two different people.
Yeah.
Their styles are going to be different. Well, guess what? That's what you're dealing with. So at the same time, I judge it on the film. Then now there's certain things about, arrogance that you may not like, but you can filter through all of that. So I have an issue with why you're trying to say some people are cocky and some people are arrogant or some people are confident.
Yeah.
It's all the same.
It's very thin lines that separate them.
Right.
I feel like.
Yeah,
I mean,
and it's always about the person who's sitting there on the other side of that saying, well, this is what I like.
Yeah.
I don't know, all the bling bling and all that. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Right? Oh,
right.
I like the, confident guy who comes in here, he just got on a, suit and a tie.
Well, who was, it's like wide receivers, right? I mean, like, look at T.O. throughout his career, Chad Johnson, those guys were, they were labeled like locker room headaches and all this stuff, but really they want the ball and they're confident and they know that they're the best.
I would say they were divas.
Yeah.
And guess what?
And that's fine.
If you have the locker room that can control the diva, you want that guy because he's going to help you win games. If you don't, then it's conveniently just let him walk. Or you can use that as a convenient excuse for why y'all lost. See, they'll change it around and be like, oh, now you're the cancer.
Right.
Well, he's the same guy he was when he got there.
With San Francisco, I'll go back to, and listen, T.O.'s probably my favorite wide receiver ever. And I go back to where UTC, where he's at UTC, he didn't get invited to the combine. He goes out there at the pro day. It's raining. He's running the 40, and they have these lockers chained that they were moving in and out of the facility. And he just busts the locker and breaks the chains and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Now, whether that's actually true or not, I mean, that's a story out there that he wrote. But at the end of the day, you knew what you were getting in that guy right there in that moment. Someone does not do that if they're not confident and that they're going to at least make an impression.
Well, especially when you're trying to take down the GOAT.
Right.
When you think you're better than the GOAT. And he believed that.
He believed
he had to.
And then he goes to San Francisco. You knew what he was when Philadelphia got him, when Dallas got him. They all knew who he was. All the fans knew who he was. He was the guy that did the popcorn and all that kind of stuff. So to then complain about that guy, being that guy, just has never made any sense to me.
And here's where they then take it. It's almost now they're in the same bucket as a guy who killed somebody or who assaulted somebody.
Right.
I was just
about to say thing.
They're all in the same bucket. I'm like, no, they never did any of that.
Right. There's wife beaters in the league.
Right.
There's sexual allegations and assault in the league. There are all kinds of things that are drug addictions in the league. Like, there's so many things worse than just being a diva. Yeah. Like, can we not separate the two and understand that being a diva is not necessarily that bad?
We tired of this now. We need to.
Now, what a player does, in this pre-draft process between the teams, I can't speak on that. I mean, we've heard the stories. We're obviously talking a little bit about Shadur Sanders involved in all this. We've seen the stories. I would have to say, with as many stories as we've heard, there's probably some truth to it. Now, I wouldn't say I'm not going to believe 100% every team, every story that has come out, because there's always gray area. The truth is always somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, you can't sit here and tell me, Blaine, Dylan Gabriel deserved to be drafted over Shadur Sanders.
Yeah, that's when you know something's up.
That's
when you know
I was on Stoney's other podcast that he does.
I was like, oh, and then they came back and drafted him 2 rounds later.
Yeah.
So I said, somebody got a call and said, draft him. Because that made no sense.
I blew a gasket when I saw Dylan Gabriel go before Shadur Sanders, because it makes no sense. There is nothing on Dylan Gabriel's tape that says that he is going to be that he has a better shot to be a more successful quarterback than Shadur Sanders. Now, I'm not saying that Shadur Sanders will 100% be successful for the Cleveland Browns, but if I am a team, and if I was someone in that room, and they said, okay, let's get Dylan Gabriel's magnet down. We're going to put him over here in the draft. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, who in the room? I would love to know the reaction in the room, because not everybody could be high-fiving that, right? I mean, because, like, that is a bad draft pick.
Man, well, obviously they thought that was...
It's just a waste of a pick, I feel like.
Well, here's what I think. Somewhere along the way, Deion's talking on different podcasts really had an impact and overvalued maybe his son. And maybe they took it as cocky and arrogant. Like, you don't tell the league where you're going. Meanwhile, there's been numerous guys that have done that, but not before they were picked. It was implied they never did interviews. See, so the league let them know who's really running things, and I think it was more of that. Not necessarily... Because I really thought him and Dart was a coin toss. Other than that, there was no other quarterbacks that were close to him. Like, besides, actually, Cam was 1. And typically, I would say Shadur was number 2 and Dart was 3. But I could see how preference could make you go either way. After that, there was a gap. And so something happened there, whether it was personality and maybe they didn't like his dad talking and speaking on as though he was going to be a top 10 pick, and finding out later that actually Deion is his agent.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you next.
I didn't know that. I had no idea. So he's the one talking to all these people on the phone, and I think he may have spoken out of turn.
Well, that was going to be my next question to you, was that, okay, we know that at this point he didn't have representation. That it was just Deion was his representation, whether you agree with that or not, that's what he did. I mean, don't you think that's a little insane not to have that kind of representation for your son? I mean, don't you think, like, to me, I look at it like this. Maybe Deion represents himself, I don't know, but you would think with Deion's connections, he would be able to find an agent that he knows very well that could help with this process, because it was pretty clear in some of these situations that Shadur Sanders was not coached up very well in how to handle some of this, because I've heard there was a distinct change between Shrine Bowl Shadur and Combine Shadur. And so like when I hear that, I think, well, something happened in between there, because I heard the Shrine Bowl Shadur blew everybody off the chart. Like, he came in, he was perfect, he was awesome, then something changed. And I don't know what it is that changed. And maybe I'm just way off base, but I feel like, man, you really could have had an agent at some point at this process.
Well, see, there we go about, well, then something changed. The kid didn't change. It was the perspective of what he was and what he could be by the league. And they wanted to put him in a place. And Deion, I think, just overshot it here. But at the same time, that dropped him that far? And there was a part of me when the draft was going, I'm like, well, if he hasn't been taken, man, I don't know if any team's going to take him. But there was only a select few of teams that were going to take him anyway. To a certain extent, they needed a quarterback. So then you have to start determining, is he good to be a backup on a roster?
Let me say something.
I mean,
if you watched college football and you think
It's
Dylan Gabriel's a better quarterback than Shadur Sanders, you don't know what you're talking
all you
about.
got to do is just go watch the Ohio State game. That's as close as you're going to get to NFL players.
And listen,
And
let me tell you something. Go look at the offensive line for Oregon. Look at the playmaker, a couple of Oregon playmakers. They have NFL talent littered all throughout that roster. It was really just Travis Hunter and Shadur Sanders, and then really I know LaJohntay Wester and Jimmy Horn, I think, got drafted both in the 7th round. But Oregon had NFL talent.
Right.
If you would have put Shadur Sanders over in Oregon, we'd be talking about Shadur Sanders, bona fide number 1 quarterback.
So I'm going to say this, though. So all the pundits and all the people who cover the draft and do draft ratings, everybody got it wrong. There is not one great scout who's been doing this forever that covers the draft. So all of them got it wrong.
He was the consensus 21st overall player. Overall player, 21 people.
That's
or
what
not
I'm
21
trying to say.
people, but I mean, he was 21st.
And so it tells you there was something off field, has nothing to do with on field, that had to do with why he dropped and he slid.
There you go. When we come back, we'll get to your phone call. Bill, I see you on there. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045 if you want to get on the conversation. We'll have Coach Mack joining us at 2:20 p.m. And let's go to the phones. Bill wants to talk about Shadur. Bill, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
What's going on?
Hey, there's no way you can tell me Shadur should have been drafted in the 5th round.
Mm-hmm.
Other than they hate Dion. They don't like his whatever. I love Dion, but this is, and I don't like Mel Kiper that much, but he's not wrong. NFL cannot evaluate quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes should have been a no-brainer first pick, but he wasn't. For some odd reason, these guys don't. I don't think they don't know what they're doing. I mean, it's just a shot in the dark, whether they like him or not. You know, all you got to do, look at the tape.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the tape. And Anthony Richardson, you got Vince Young, all these guys. Just look at the Titans, Jake Locker, all these guys they've drafted hadn't worked out. You know, they can't evaluate quarterbacks either. I mean, who knows if Cam Ward's going to work out? I mean, but there's no way Shadur should have not been at least the second quarterback pick. I mean, you know, Mel Kiper ain't wrong.
Hey, I agree. And I don't even want to stop just at Shadur. Thank you for the call, Bill. Dylan Gabriel's not better than Kyle McCord or Will Howard either.
No.
And they went way too far down the list. I understand that some teams are probably getting cute and playing these games and like, well, we could probably we'll gamble and not take Will Howard right now. We'll gamble and not take Kyle McCord right now. I understand that there is a game to be played and there's the quarterback draft and the actual draft. Mm-hmm. But Dylan Gabriel's not better than Kyle McCord or Will Howard either.
Mm-mm. Nope.
And Dylan Gabriel was the 168th overall quarterback or player in this draft that was drafted 94th overall. Kyle McCord and Will Howard were both ranked considerably higher than him on most consistent sports. I'm sorry, those two guys are better than Dylan Gabriel. I don't understand the Dylan Gabriel pick in and of itself, and I don't understand the Dylan Gabriel pick over Shadur Sanders, Kyle McCord, and Will Howard. I can make an argument that the Saints like Shuck more. I can make an argument of why a team would take Jalen Milroe like the Seattle Seahawks and stuff like that. Like I can see why other quarterbacks went in a different direction. But when you're the Cleveland Browns and you decided to go Dylan Gabriel over Shadur Sanders, that doesn't make any sense other than the Deion Sanders, the Sanders family handled the process or did something in the process that just turned everybody off. And not because of the tape, but because of something else.
Yeah, that's pretty. I mean, what about Quinn Ewers? Is he better than Dylan?
He should have gone undrafted in my opinion. No, I'm just kidding. he fell really low though too.
But do you think he's better than Dylan Gabriel?
And you know how much I don't like Quinn Ewers,
right?
But he is better than Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel has to use all 5'8" of him to just get the ball down 20, 30 yards down the field. I've never seen anything like it. He has to use his whole body like he's a shot putter or as a discus throw. And what's the one you put it over on your shoulder and you have to turn around a couple of times before you throw it? Shot put, I think. Yeah. That's how he has to do it. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, and I don't even like Quinn Ewers as a prospect, but I didn't think he's better than Dylan Gabriel.
Is Dylan Gabriel better than Kyle McCord?
No. Not better than Will Howard. The Browns just threw away a third-round pick. I mean, I don't know. I just don't get it. I feel
like somebody told him to go draft Shadur. I don't know why.
I wouldn't be surprised if that eventually comes out when Stefanski's eventually fired or the GM's fired. It will come out, though, that was the owner's decision.
Okay, imagine this now. We all know there's like 4 quarterbacks outside of Watson on the team, right? Flacco, Pickett, now Gabriel, now Shadur.
Yeah.
How is Shadur, being the last round that it was taking a quarterback, going to get reps at practice? Think about that now. 4th-string quarterback.
I don't think it'll be for long.
Something is going to have to break here, and then it's going to go, somebody made a boo-boo.
I think that...
Because you don't get reps as a 4th-string quarterback. Right. You may get 1 rep in 7-on-7 and maybe 2 reps on team.
I look at Dylan. I look at it this way. I think Joe Flacco will start the year as quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. Shadur Sanders will finish the year as the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. Let's go to Luke, who wants to talk about Marcus Harris. Luke, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Hey, guys. Hope you are having a good day. Man, I'm going to be glad after a few weeks when we can quit talking about Shadur. And
this was our first day, though.
Yeah, this is our first time, so don't lump us in with everybody else has been talking about it.
I know. I mean, the media in a whole and but other parts of the national market. But I only caught a little bit of the show yesterday. Try to listen to you guys every day. Love the show. So, yeah, I wanted to ask specifically about Marcus Harris. And, Blaine, if you've seen his tape, he's later round CB. I'm assuming, based on his skill set, they would like him for depth and stuff. But I don't know. You sometimes see these guys kind of come out of nowhere and become elite players and in later rounds, like Snead and others. But just want to see your take on him, what you think, if he'll make the final roster, hopefully, and maybe potential there, and where they would line him up. All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Luke. Have you gotten around to any Marcus Harris tape?
Yeah, you watched him too?
I've watched him while watching other people in California.
Right, yeah. They had a couple. They had
such a great defense. So I'm kind of glad they dipped into the California defensive talent pool. I do think that if I were to put on a conspiracy hat theory real quick, Blaine, they've drafted a lot of nickel cornerbacks. And I know Roger McCreary's in the final year of his contract. Yeah. And I know that Kenny Moore just got a big contract, and other nickel corners have gotten big contracts. So I feel like they're preparing for the future.
Right, yeah. He's 5'11", 190, so he could potentially be that. He was 3 years at Idaho, and then he transferred to California.
Yeah.
So, so he started 51 games throughout his career in college. One thing that stands out, though, he has great ball skills. He's always getting PBUs, and that means pass breakups. So he was always around the ball, really solid tackler, and he was a smart football player. You could tell he was good at route recognition in different, offenses. So I thought he had a high football IQ. He's works well with the press, and he had a smooth pedal. So all those things translate to me. He's at least going to be a solid, even if he just never becomes more than just a backup or slot, as you mentioned.
Right.
I think he'll be a solid player. And he showed aggressiveness there on tackling. I think he needs to put on a little bit of weight up top just to keep his, from getting injured in the NFL, because he was playing a little reckless for a thinner guy. But I like his aggressiveness and his football acumen. So, it shows up on film. He's a good, solid player. I think he could potentially – I want to know how fast he is, because I saw him with some catch-up speed sometime. Then other times, I don't know if he knew they weren't going to throw his way. So that's probably the only thing as far as his weakness. I'm not sure if he's a 4.4 guy or is he a 4.5 guy.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because I've only watched, like I said, cursory glances of Marcus Harris, because I was really focused on like Teddy Buchanan, Craig Woodson, Noel Williams. So I never really got around to his part of the tape. So I'm going to go back and watch some of his tape. So I'm glad that at least you did. When we come back, we'll talk about Femi Oladejo. We'll talk about Kevin Winston. We'll also get to Clint and Joe on the phone line. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
There are a lot of diagnoses out there, and there's a pill for everything, but not all diagnoses are accurate, and not all pills are good for you. Hey, it's Blaine Bishop, and so when you get a diagnosis from a European auto repair shop, go get a second opinion before you make a major decision. And Eurofix is the home for second opinions. So before you spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars on a European vehicle repair from a diagnosis, go to Eurofix. It could not only save your vehicle's life, but could actually save you from a lot of stress that can ruin your week or weekend. And life's too short to get stressed out and angry. So be happy and go to Eurofix. And at Eurofix, you get a free 15-minute no-wrench inspection with an estimate at every visit, and not high-pressure sales tactics. 3-year nationwide warranty, plus a free loaner car with every repair appointment. And family-owned for 26 years, located all over the state of Tennessee in Franklin, Hunted Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now Mount Juliet. And all you have to do is just give them a call at 844-EUROFIX. That's right, 844-EUROFIX, or you can visit them online at myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com. Always tell them Blaine, did you?
It is 2:02. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Jackson Williams. In NFL news, the 49ers and tight end George Kittle have agreed to a new 4-year, $76 million contract extension with $40 million of that guaranteed. This new deal makes Kittle the highest paid tight end in the NFL with an AAV of $19 million per year. Tennessee basketball news, they have added Amari Abram through the transfer pool. Abram will be a rising senior this season and averaged 12.3 points per game and 4 total rebounds with Louisiana Tech last season. Abram also had stops at both Ole Miss and Georgia Tech. For our foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door. 615-737-1045 is the number. We've been talking about, I mean, we didn't plan to talk about the Shadur Sanders thing, no. But it was a natural progression from, we just kind of start talking about Cam Ward, then we start talking about confidence and the problem with anonymous sources and all this stuff, and just kind of just trickled that way. Yeah. And it's something we haven't talked about. So that's the beauty of this show. I come in with a loose game plan. And we actually just have a normal conversation. I'm not going to keep it regimented or anything. I'm just going to say, hey, if Blaine's really on fire about a topic, let's talk about a topic. If I get on fire about a topic, let's talk about it. Like,
there you go.
You just got to go with the flow. And so we got some phone calls we need to get to. Let's go to Clint first. Who wants to talk about the Tennessee Titans? Clint, you're on Blaine and Zach.
Hey, Zach. Hey, Blaine. I appreciate y'all taking my call. I kind of got a question about the new regime coming in with the rookie class. You know, we've been told that they're bringing in a new type of player that's high integrity, smart, football is life guy. Mm-hmm. But with Blaine, this is kind of for you. And I've heard you talk about it before, is bringing in some dogs. You know, so that gritty, edgy, violent. Yeah. A player that really makes a difference. I'm not saying that that's mutually exclusive. You can have a high integrity guy who's also gritty and edgy, but who out of this class and who on the team right now would you consider one of those dogs that you can just get behind? And I'll take your call off the air. I appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Clint.
Jeffrey Simmons, definitely. I mean, so we, all the guys have, somewhat of an edge to this, even to be in the league. Let's start there. But, when the going gets tough, who rises? And the cream of the crop usually rises, and, that's where your elite level players do. So I think that they're looking for, when you turn on the tape, you see that they're relentless. So that'll tell you a little inkling of who their personality is. And guess what? You want to watch them when they're losing. How's he playing out? And I'm not talking about you're still in the game. I'm talking about getting your butts whooped. Yeah, and then you turn on the tape and you see how he's flowing to the ball or running, or how he's playing. Is he still nasty? He's still, doing, offensive lineman. I mean, so that's when you really tell what a guy's all about. He's like, no, I'm upset. I'm a winner, and we lost this game, and I'm going to keep playing hard as heck. So I think there's little inklings where you can find those type of players, and they're somewhat blue collar, and that's how you get that edge. Even all these guys were at some point wanted to be shown that they are that dude, and everybody can't be that guy. So they continue to work and get better.
Yeah, I look at a couple of games from Michigan this year. They were getting blown out. Khalil Mullins just kept on trucking through people.
Good Lord.
Femi Oladejo, I mean, they were getting blown out in a couple of games, and he's just thrusting his body and trying to create something.
I thought he was going to be a bowling ball. He kept like boom, boom. The people just falling off.
It's crazy.
I was like, oh my God, that guy's like 300 pounds.
And Stoney Keeley says Jackson Slater is made of grit. Like that is all. He's all grit.
Well, I saw him bury people, so that would be okay. How's that translate at the NFL level? So that there's still
it'll be interesting to see. Now, I will say he held his own against Walter Nolan, who was drafted in the first round. But
yes, that is
I
true.
think when you look at Jackson Slater as a great developmental prospect to get behind maybe Lloyd Cushenberry or Kevin Zeitler at some point, future starter, but that's what you're looking for in that 5th round.
But dog, though, you see
He's
it
a dog.
regardless of whatever, no doubt.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's go to Joe, who is wanting to talk about Shadur. Joe, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Thanks, guys. Good afternoon. And Jackson, I'll get to what I was going to call about. But first, I got to ask Zach a question. Zach, who did the Big Ten coaches vote as first-team quarterback?
I would not know because I do not care about awards like that. Dylan Gabriel, I guess, maybe.
Exactly. The coaches voted for Dylan Gabriel. And who was the quarterback of Oregon when they beat Ohio State at the first of the last year?
Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah. The talent is not that the disparity. That's not the issue. The issue is it's a Kardashian-type situation. It's drama. It's all the stuff that goes with Shadur. He can blame not just himself, but it's a circus. This is a big business, the NFL. They don't want to have to deal with a circus. The coach doesn't want to stand there at every practice and answer a question about Shadur. So that's really the reason he fell. It's more of a social media issue. They just don't want to deal with it. And I feel sorry for the kid because it's not all his fault. From everything I've heard, he seems like a good kid. Mm-hmm. But they just didn't want to deal with it. And I don't know why people don't understand that. But
isn't your culture, just a quick question, isn't the culture built by actually your locker room and not necessarily, he can't bring that in the locker room. So how does that impact your locker room if you have guys in the locker room that are vets that will keep him in line?
Well, Blaine, you know better. You know that. You've seen it in all sports. And they go, this guy was a problem in the locker room. We were a better team when we got him out of the locker room. You know that's true.
Was T.O. like that?
Huh?
Was Terrell Owens? Was he a problem?
I don't. But you know for a fact that that's happened in every sport. And I'm not saying he's a bad kid, but the coaches and the organization don't want to deal with a circus if they don't have to, especially all things given equal. There's not a big difference. I mean, between Shadur and Jackson Dart and Dylan Gabriel, there's not a big difference. You know what I mean? It's not like Cameron Ward, who was clearly the number one quarterback in the draft. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it was other outside issues that caused them to back off.
Yeah. True. No, I definitely agree with that. But I think if you have a strong locker room, the NFL is a little bit different in that, it's grown men. And then you don't have a circus at any point in time in your locker room. Like, I don't know. I don't know. What would you consider a circus?
Well, see, because we kind of talked about this a couple of times where okay, if Deion says something over in Colorado 300 miles away, why do I give a crap about it? I understand that it can be a distraction for the media. It can be a distraction for the fans, but it shouldn't be a distraction for the players if you have a strong locker room. To me, if you're letting a rookie come in and disrupt your locker room, you have a weak locker room and weak culture.
Right. Now, here's what I will say. To the caller's point, it's just now dawned on me. Maybe it's because he's a quarterback, and maybe that carries a little more weight. But other than that, I think about the circus, and I can't think of a circus at any point in time. I could say a circus was like when the Dallas Cowboys had Michael Irvin, those guys wearing fur coats, and he was going to court for all these different things, and they still won. So I don't. The coach, Deion, in his presence won't be in a locker room like that. Here, ask me a question about Deion. I'm the head coach of the Titans. Ask me a question about what he commented about his
So this is really fun because Aaron Glenn did something similar to this.
Did he?
Yeah. Oh. So Blaine, Coach Blaine, just wants you to know that what do you think about the comments that Deion made about Shadur Sanders being let down by his offensive line and the people around him, and it's not his fault that you guys lost the game 38-0?
With all due respect, Deion is a great player, but he is not in our locker room. He's in Colorado's locker room. So we don't address any comments that have to do with someone outside of our locker room. Yeah.
I love it.
Period. It's over. That doesn't happen. Like, I can't think of a player why people think Deion can impact their locker room. He's not going to be on the sideline there. He may be getting passed to get on the sideline or something, but that whole circus type stuff maybe he has a circus at his university, at Colorado.
Yeah.
But that circus is not going to infiltrate an NFL team.
And if it does, that says more about the team than it does about Deion and Shadur.
Right. They let that happen.
Yeah, they let that happen. Let's go to Titan Willie just real quick, who wants to talk about the Tennessee Titans draft. Titan Willie, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
What's up, guys? How are y'all doing this morning?
Doing good. How are you?
Hey, doing good. I just wanted to call real quick and kind of give my 2 cents on my take here of the draft. To me, it just seemed like coming out of it was a completely different vibe than any other draft I think we had under J-Rob and even under Ren. It just seemed like the front office was kind of on the same page, which to me as a fan is indicating that the success of the team, maybe not this season, but in the seasons to come, the trajectory is definitely different than anything I think we've seen, just because of how unified they are in their vision. And also, I just kind of wanted to point out the success of Cam Ward, I think, and I've kind of started to side with this recently, is if a quarterback has multiple years of starting experience in college, their chance of success in the league is far higher. For example, I mean, looking at Bo Nix, right? Like, he had multiple years as a starter in college. They didn't think he was going to be all that good, but then he gets in the league and he starts playing really well. I think a lot of these scouts are trying to recruit kids too early. They don't have the experience, and they ended up, they bust out in the pros. So I think for Cam Ward to have 5 years of college ball as a starter, progressively playing better, I think that in and of itself makes him stand out from all the other quarterbacks. I just want to hear you guys' take on that and see about the future success of Cam Ward and what this franchise is looking like, because I can tell you guys the fan base is feeling really good about this. So thank you all so much. Have a good one.
Yeah, I would say the vibes have never been higher for Tennessee Titans draft class. So it's probably the 2019 one. I mean, that 2019 one, I mean, I felt like the vibe, maybe it's because the draft was here, but it felt like the vibes were off the chart about that one. But when we come back, I'll ask Coach Mack that question, because we got Coach Mack coming up next for his weekly Mack Attack about what he thinks about the years of experience and how that translates to the NFL for Cam Ward. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
You've been saying the whole time. Hey, folks, I've been talking about Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance for years because they're the leading experts in sports medicine and performance and the team physician for the NFL, college, and high school athletics across Tennessee. And TOA provides sports medicine coverage to more high school and college sports teams than any orthopedic group in the state of Tennessee. They have 29 locations throughout the state and over 100 physicians throughout Middle and East Tennessee to take care of all your musculoskeletal needs. And TOA has 11 urgent care locations with walk-in availability 7 days a week. They offer direct access to sports medicine and performance, physical therapy and nutrition, personalized rehabilitation plans to enhance mobility, reduce pain, and improve overall physical function for patients recovering from injuries or surgeries. And TOA also offers sports performance training, a specialized program designed to enhance athletic performance and provide tailored training solutions for athletes at all levels. So please check out their services at TOA.com. Yes, that's right, TOA.com.
You know what that music means? It's Tuesday at 2:20 p.m. That means it's time for our weekly Mack Attack with Coach Mack, brought to you by Two Rivers Ford, South's most trusted Ford dealer. And Mack, have you fully recovered from your 2-day extravaganza and, of course, the whole offseason of your all's excellent coverage over at Titans Radio draft coverage?
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's a lot of work for everybody. I know you guys put in a lot of work, and all of a sudden it's over. But there's the work really just now starts, for these players and for these franchises. And so this train that is the National Football League, as both of you guys know there very, very well, it doesn't stop very often. I mean, you may have a few pauses, but there's no stops.
We had a caller call in and ask us a question. I wanted to save it and toss it to you and get your thoughts. Obviously, Cam Ward has played 2 years at Incarnate Word, 2 years at Washington State, and 1 year over at Miami. Do you think that teams in the NFL are going to start leaning towards those prospects, specifically maybe even just the quarterbacks, but those prospects that have those experience, that has that kind of, I would say, journey to the NFL where they make a couple different stops and you see them in a couple different schemes, see them what they do well and what they don't do well?
Well, it's the world that you got to navigate now. I mean, not only for the National Football League and evaluating these players. I mean, we had a pretty good discussion about this, I think, on your show one other time about the evaluation process now because of the transfer portal, the way that impacts the way that you look at these players, and you have to follow them where they go. But it also, I mean, it impacts the whole development of what's going on now in collegiate football. This is a completely different age as far as to what's going on now. And so, I mean, you just evaluate it as it comes along. You still got some players that are going to be their entire career at one place, and then you've got a lot of them that are going to enter the portal and for different reasons at different positions. And then you've got to follow the progress. And the thing that you're looking for is some sort of a linear progress as to why they left. And, most of them are leaving now, especially with the quarterback slot, for a chance to play earlier. And then also, there's money involved in it now. So it's part of the evaluation process now that is going to be with us until there are some other rulings that come down for the way collegiate football works. But I don't think that you lean into it one way or the other as a preference one way or the other. You just know that it's going to be something that's present. And so what you do is you learn how to navigate that system that's going on right now.
So with Cam Ward being drafted, you have obviously watched a lot of tape on Cam Ward. You've seen what maybe he needs to fix, what he excels at. Brian Callahan as well. And so now the ball's in Brian Callahan's court on how to, I guess, design the offense around Cam Ward's strength and his weaknesses. What would be something that you would start implementing if you were Brian Callahan to make sure that Cam Ward is ready by the time, training camp and OTAs and all that stuff comes around?
Well, I mean, it's going to be a progression of what look, they've done extensive work. All the extensive work that you do on these guys, and especially the quarterbacks, you're trying to emphasize their strengths, but you involve them in the process. I mean, clearly, I've never met Cam Ward, but they've done extensive work on him, and within that work, I'm talking about face to face, talking about things that are going to be very, very relevant, when he first comes in, and it will be a developing process. You know that he's got the arm strength. You know that he's got the ability to do with the off-schedule things. Then you've got to find out what are the things that you can do that can benefit the entire offense with him running it. It's still a team game. He's got to have all the other elements around him, but they've already gone through a lot of these things, and that's what you do when you're vetting quarterbacks, especially if you're vetting quarterbacks in this draft process that you are very, very serious about taking. You sit down and go through details with what they've done with them, with what their expectations are, how you see them doing, and how you can incorporate what they do best, especially to give them a jump start when they first start. So it's an ongoing process. It's not just one thing. It's a combination of things that you do, but you start this process very early when you're already vetting these guys. I'm going to be very interested once the OTAs start to be able to see the progression of this, because it's not going to be just one particular thing. It's going to be a combination of things, not only with himself, but with all these other people that they're trying to surround him with.
I know that Mike Bergonzi talked about big, fast, tough. Him and Chad Brinker both did. And then they talked about this being a tone-setting draft. But they also said that you should be able to now, as fans or as the media, be able to look at a prospect and say, this is a Tennessee Titans player. So based on this draft class, what is a Tennessee Titans player for this regime?
Well, it looks like they've taken players that have a lot of background to them. They've taken players that are of very, very high character players that are productive players where they are. I mean, production is still extremely, extremely important, and that is a common thread that kind of runs through all of these guys. And then the other thing, I mean, when you start getting into all of the other boxes that you start to try to check, you see what their leadership qualities were at the places they were. And you dig on them and find out as far as not only background, but just the consistency of them. These are some very consistent players. It seems like that they've drafted that have been consistent throughout their careers. Wherever they were and whatever level they were at, they were very, very consistent. I think that's a big, big part of it. And then you're not going to last very long in this league, and hopefully you're able to get guys. I'm just going by what I went through in vetting players. I mean, you want guys that are extremely, extremely competitive, and also guys that will be able to embrace the grind of what it is to be a professional. You've got a little bit more of an idea now about how these guys are going to handle money, because now they've all been paid. But being paid is a minor part of being a professional. Being able to physically and mentally and emotionally handle the grind that is professional football, that's something that you try to dig into and find out. Now, you'll never know completely until you get the person in the building and start putting them through exactly day-to-day what they will experience. But you can find a baseline that you can get a pretty good gauge on.
We're on the phone with Coach Mack for his weekly Mack Attack, brought to you by Tours Ford, South's most trusted Ford dealer.
Well, on a broad scope there, Coach, appreciate you. Oh, yeah. Coming on were there any league-wide draft trends that you saw this year that were, maybe let's just say compared to last year's draft that stood out to you?
Well, every draft, Blaine, it's a good question, because every draft has a different formation to it.
Mm-hmm.
When I was going, through this draft, and finally when we started doing it, and you could kind of see clubs. This draft was shaped a little bit like a Coke bottle. I mean, at the top, it was a little bit, thinner and smaller, but there was a big bulge in the middle. That some really good players.
Mm-hmm.
This belly of the draft, as we talked about, was really different. And this was a draft if you wanted to trade down in the draft. You saw a lot of the trading down happening, especially from the second day on happening, because there was a pretty wide spread of players that you really felt like that you could add some numbers maybe in certain places that you could kind of get the same value depending on where, if you could hit a sweet spot when you were trading down in this draft. And that's one thing that I saw. The other thing is, and it goes with the first question that Zach asked about the transfer portal. You've got to be able to follow these guys wherever they've started and wherever they are. That's made this really, and you're really starting to get to the culmination now, or really into the second and third years of this transfer portal thing. We're starting to see exactly how not only collegiate teams but players themselves are utilizing this transfer portal to give themselves a chance to jump from place to place for certain reasons. That plays a big part in this too.
Mm. Were there, naturally there were some players that, let's say, rose in the draft that you were a little surprised at, and we all know who dropped in the draft they were a little surprised at. So I kind of want you to address, maybe it was a player you said, oh, man, I didn't have him rated that high, whether it was a round ahead or maybe a couple of rounds ahead, and then vice versa.
No, you know what? Really, I mean, just on our draft board, just talking about, and again, we set our draft board because we're doing 2 days live, and then tracking the third day to try to go as far as the way we think the league might, see these players. They're really, I mean, the only really guys, the big outlier clearly on our board that probably was the outlier on everybody's board was Shadur. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had him rated higher than the fifth round. Now, what I do know is this: there's 32 individual teams, and really, because I've been on the inside of it for over 3 decades, I know that the draft boards of clubs look completely different than what the 3.5 months of prognosticators are that are out there in the public. I mean, that to me is where people are all of a sudden shocked. I guess shock's is a little bit more of a drastic word, but just surprised to say, well, I didn't think he would go that. Well, I didn't think he would go this high, or I thought he would be higher than that. You just don't know, and I mean, I've learned that very, very quickly in my time. Is that all these boards are different? They really are. I mean, you hear that, but the more that you're around this, that I've been around it a long time, you believe it, because there's some people that just work, off of a 160-player board. I mean, and so different boards are set up differently in different rooms. So I'm never really shocked anymore. But the one outlier this year that, of course, captured the at least the rhetoric quite a bit was Shadur, and there's probably a lot to all of that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Coach, we went with Coach Mack giving us Mack Attack. Take us through some of the evaluation of some of the players like Femi Oluwadejo. What were your thoughts on him being a converted linebacker at Cal Berkeley and now to play defensive end at UCLA? What did you see on tape, and what was your evaluation?
Yeah, Olufemi Oladejo, he was very interesting when you started looking at him, because you could tell the real difference in production that it made when they moved him to the outside. This was a guy that I think in a lot of people's minds was really a, you want to talk about a riser, as you're talking about, throughout the entire process as far as an edge rusher. And he is not a complete accomplished edge rusher, but he's got lower body twitch, he's got strength. The other thing that he has is he's got, when you really look at tape, if you just put somebody on tape, especially when you're watching a defensive player, the one thing that you're looking at first and foremost, do they have lower body explosion, and what is their effort like? And their effort, throughout the course of how they're playing. Here's the thing that I think that got a lot of interest in him, and clearly the Titans were very, very interested in him because when he was standing up at times behind the ball, I mean, he wasn't a completely empty chair doing that, because he's got good K&D from standing up, good explosion, good recognition, good downhill. But when he's on the edge, then you can see the speed, you can see the power, and those types of things. And as much as you're trying to move people around now, the way defenses are trying to counteract what's going on offensively in this league, I thought he was one of the players that he interested me very, very quickly when I started watching him. And I think the move to the outside really started to accentuate what he could do physically. And then he goes to the combine and with all the explosive tests and those types of things, I mean, just jumps off the board. So I mean, I saw a really violent and physical player that's got a huge chance to really be able to do something and be a contributor pretty quick.
Last question. Everything with development of all these draft picks must be done by the coaching staff naturally. But does it really matter outside of Cam Ward's development?
Well, yeah, they all have to be developed. I mean, you know that. I mean, you did it, and you saw a lot of rookies come in during your time. Regardless of what kind of pedigree they bring into this league, they still have to be developed. And so, yeah, but look, your quarterback in the National Football League is the trigger. It's the trigger for everything that goes on. But they all have to be developed, because if you can bring a class along, and they all can develop at the same pace, that's how you start to be able to build a football team. You've got to be able to build it through the draft, but your draft picks, the majority of them, have to develop so that they're contributors, and then some of them may morph into major contributors, but they all need to be contributors throughout their 4-year span on that rookie contract. That is essential. The development of your class as a group has to be essential. But your quarterback, absolutely, Blaine. I mean, they're the trigger point for everything that happens with every team in the league.
Coach, when you're talking about Femi Oladejo and the presence that he brings, obviously linebacker, edge, there's going to be some things that he's going to have to work on. He has speed to power, though. Why does speed to power translate so well for a rookie in their first year?
Well, because that's the first way that you're able to threaten off the edge is speed to power. Then what has to happen is once people, I'm talking about offensively, an offensive tackle knows that you're speed to power. You've got to develop a similar effective counter move, at least one. You don't have to have a myriad of moves, but you need your counter. Whatever your counter punch is has to be just as effective as your major punch. I mean, and that's what he needs to develop. He's going to have to develop that, because you cannot, regardless of how skilled you are, there are the offensive linemen. They can set protections. They can do things to take away a one threat. So you've got to develop an effective counter punch off of what your major punch is, and that's what he needs to learn to develop. And that's what all of these guys coming into this league need to do. You know, say a guy comes in and he's extremely quick and he's got a great spin move. Well, sooner or later, tackles are going to start setting to the inside and make him work on a speed to power and see if he can overtake you, on an edge. Those types of things you learn, and that's where the development comes in, just because the opponents that you're going against have a much refined skill set than you went against in the collegiate football.
When you look at a player like Chimere Dike, who maybe wasn't on everybody's radar as far as the general media is concerned and fans were concerned, even regarding just in general for the NFL draft, but when you see what he can bring, he obviously had speed at the combine, and we know he's got speed athletically, but did you think the speed showed up enough on tape consistently for him down at Florida?
Yeah, I mean, you could tell he was a fast player. Plus, he's not a little guy. I mean, he's 196 pounds. I mean, he's not a little guy, and he brings a return component too. The fact, but speed, straight line speed. I did a big thing on this, the other day. There's a difference between straight line speed and football speed. I mean, there's a huge difference. I mean, I've been on staffs before during all my career where we would bring Olympic sprinters in to try to give them a workout and try them out, and they could run fast. Olympic sprinters, speed-wise. But when you start incorporating the ball into it, I mean, they start ducking like, why are you throwing things at me? And start doing things that pertain to playing football, start, stop, speed adjustment, all of those types of things. There's a difference. But, I mean, where he was drafted, on our board, he was right there in that range. But you have to have some component that gets you noticed, especially at that point in the draft, and speed is his. Plus, he can return.
So speed is his. What is Io Manner's skill that gets you noticed in this draft at the wide receiver position?
He's a combat catcher. He's a nuanced combat catcher. I mean, everybody knows about the game that he had against Colorado, in the matchups. You saw that. And I'm saying this with all due respect. The team that he was on at Stanford wasn't good, all right? and so that was rough to begin with. But he's got nuances in his route running. He's a bigger body. He's got really good spatial awareness. His hand-eye coordination with contested catches is really good. He's a guy that is going to be able, he and the quarterback get on the same page. The quarterback can put it up, and most of the time he will come down with it. He's proven that he can do that. I like the player, especially at that spot where he was taken. I really like the player because he's competitive. He's extremely, extremely competitive. Now, what he needs to clean up, and a lot of it was, and again, I don't want to put this on the fact that a lot of the balls that were thrown to him weren't great balls. Mm-hmm. More consistent, with the catches at certain times. But the competitive nature of the player, and he's proven that he will fight for the ball and more than often than not come down with it. I really liked.
Well, this has been Coach Mack going over the Titans draft class with us on Cover 2. Of course, he's brought to you by Two Rivers Ford, South's most trusted Ford dealer. And you'll be able to hear Coach Mack talk about all the prospects all week right here on 105 The Zone. Coach Mack, been a pleasure.
Guys, can't wait to watch these guys. This is what it's all about. It's just watch them develop on the field. Look forward to seeing them with you guys.
I'm with you. I'm ready to get out on that field, see some of those, even those undrafted free agents out there.
You got to get with Blaine because he gets preference on the perch up there where he can watch him. So
that's a good tip. That's a good tip. I'm gonna make sure I follow Blaine around.
Hey man, you got somebody follow me, Coach Mack?
you got me. Blaine, I know what's going on.
I also need to get me a big round hat for shade.
We're indoors.
We're indoors? All right, I like it. Oh, I'm in. All right, thanks, Coach Mack.
Yeah.
When we come back, we'll get to Alex, who's been waiting patiently now for over 30 minutes. So we're definitely going to get to you, Alex. Please do not hang up. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone.
Ever wonder how I keep my mojo? Well, hey, it's Blaine Bishop here. And if you're looking for the best tacos in town, you got to check out Mojo's Tacos. They've got 3 amazing locations, including my favorite spot in Nolensville. And Mojo's Tacos is where the magic happens. Whether you're craving their mouth-watering carne asada, their delicious fish tacos, or their famous street corn, they've got it all. And don't forget to try their house-made salsa. It packs a punch. And each location has great vibe, perfect for family night or out catching up with your friends or your bros or your sisters, yes. Plus, their friendly staff will make you feel right at home. So head on over to Mojo's Tacos and taste the difference. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. Mojo's Tacos, 3 locations and 1 unforgettable experience.
Two Rivers Ford announces employee pricing for everyone. Every tradesman, every dad, every rising star. You pay what we pay. Two Rivers Ford. Locally owned. American made.
This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045 as his last call for phone calls before we turn it over to 3HL, who's coming up next. But we're going to go to Alex, who wants to talk about Shadur. Alex, you're on with Blaine and Zach. We appreciate you holding.
Oh, hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. I don't Did people forget the same thing that happened to Shadur Sanders? Didn't Will Levis fall in the draft a couple years ago for the exact same for coming off as arrogant and entitled in interviews and not being talented enough? I'll hang up and listen to your opinion.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but that was from first to second.
Yeah. that
did happen.
It did happen.
It did happen.
And I will say the Will Levis's tape also was way worse than Shadur Sanders today. So, I mean, but I do get what he's saying. Mm-hmm. But then, because I've seen also people bring up, well, Johnny Manziel got drafted in the first round. Bro, that was over 10 years ago. The NFL's changed pretty drastically
I never
in terms of that. And but, in this case, again, you're correct in what you're saying is that Will Levis fell for different reasons, I guess you could say. I mean, it still, there was that arrogance about him, but there was also the banana peel, the mayonnaise in the coffee, the asking Peyton Manning question. There was a lot of other stuff just besides the arrogance and obviously the tape. And with Shadur, there's a lot of stuff. It's his dad. It's all this other stuff, but it's not the tape. Mm-hmm. You just can't convince me. And Blaine, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. You've watched a lot of his tape too. You just can't convince me that it's a tape issue.
Nah,
to go to the fifth round.
Nah. That's why I believe it was all off field. Yeah. Whether it was him or getting bad advice or his dad. Yeah, that was. Yeah, he was a third rated quarterback. It was pretty clear.
Yeah, I mean, we had him rated higher, but I think the NFL. I think NFL analysts, I guess I should say, the media people had him. He ended up being consensus quarterback too, but it was close between him and Jackson Dart for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And again, it's just your cup of tea. It's your type of flavor of quarterback. I get it. Totally understand how the evaluation process works for different people. Different people land on a wide variety of different prospects, right? The NFL draft media thought that Chimere DK was the 203rd best player in the NFL. The Tennessee Titans thought he was at least worthy of the 103rd best pick in the NFL. So, again, different flavors because that was their guy. They were looking for something particular from Chimere DK.
What about Femi? What was he rated?
Femi was 82, if I'm not mistaken. Hold on, I got to actually.
You took him at 52?
Yeah, so the Tennessee, he ended up being 81. They took him at 52. Okay. So, again, different flavors, all this kind of stuff. So to me, I just, what are NFL, to me, it kind of goes back to the point that you were making in the first segment of this hour. It was what does it say about the team's culture that were interested in Shadur Sanders that they felt that, okay, well, maybe we can't handle a dad that's for Louisiana thousands of miles away, like the New Orleans Saints. I don't know. I mean, that to me just seems all a little crazy.
I don't know. Maybe it was more. Maybe it was just his dad, but it's also how they handled the whole process. And I think once coming to realization that his dad was also his agent, I think then now we know there were conversations. Yeah. And so how did he, talk on those conversations? Really, we will never know. So maybe he, pushed some guys away as well as didn't have them work out or do some things that he should have done. Then a lot of people say that he kind of changed his tone as far as Shadur in these meetings and kind of came across as arrogant and pompous, So it's really hard to say. But at the end of the day, I think they just wanted to say, hey, he wasn't good enough to overcome that. He wasn't an elite level player where people will say, okay, we'll still take him.
Yeah.
He was a real good player, and they say there's other players here that we can go get or, pass up, and then eventually we'll get to a point where we could take him. So I think that's really what happened. But, man, was I shocked to see it in the moment? What was going on? Absolutely. Especially him going past third round, I thought, he may not get drafted because you got to understand who needs a quarterback. And now you're starting looking for quarterbacks that you want to bring in as a backup. And if they believe all the noise that was around, you may not even want him there as a backup.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I think we alluded to earlier when we saw that Dylan Gabriel went, I thought for sure, maybe he's not going to get drafted.
Right.
Because if that's what the NFL, if an NFL team, quarterback needy team like the Browns thinks that Dylan Gabriel is better than Shadur Sanders, things went really south. That we know some stuff, but things were a lot worse than what we were really told.
Idea.
I was going to go Jackson, but we got a phone call coming in, so that's good. But I look at it and I go, just real quick, Aaron Glenn was asked about Aaron Rodgers at Amon Membu's press conference. You know, Aaron Rodgers on the Pat McAfee show and said all that stuff about, Aaron Glenn. Yeah. So the reporter goes, hey, I know this is not really the appropriate time, but this is the first time we've been able to see you since Aaron Rodgers said all this stuff about you on Pat McAfee. Would you like to respond? And he goes, absolutely. Armand Membu is going to be a great tackle for this New York Jets team, and I'm really glad that we are able to have him be a member of the New York Jets or something to that effect. And I'm like, that's my guy. That's exactly. He didn't bite the reporter's head off. He just said, hey, essentially, he's not here. We're not going to talk about him. That will do it for us today. Jackson, do you have a real quick comment? You were flashing your microphone over there.
His theory. What did he want, Frank, on his theory?
It was something about the NFL holding Shadur back to get more ratings for day 3 of the draft.
I love it.
No, that was the highest rating for the last day of the draft, by the way, Jackson.
It was. All right, that will do it for us. 3HL's up next has been covered 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here at 104.5 The Zone. And in the meantime.
And in between time.
Peace.